What's going on, everyone? I'm back, and today I wanted to discuss a very interesting topic, and that is what is the best position to draft in this year's 2018 fantasy football season, specifically in the first round. And before I continue on too much, let me just quickly say that no matter where you draft, I still firmly do believe that you can come up with a good squad of players as long as you follow a smart and sound football strategy. You don't reach on guys and you get good value on the guys that you do select. But with that being said, let's not pretend that being able to choose where you draft in the first round doesn't come with its own set of advantages, and then not being able to have a choice at all doesn't come with its own set of disadvantages. And I think this is a trend that we're starting to see more and more in leagues, because more and more leagues offer the option of auctioning off their picks in the first round and allowing the player to specifically select where they want to draft. And this is something we see day to day, if you think about it, with mock drafts. Because what's the goal of a mock draft? Well, it allows you to toggle specifically what part of the first round you want to draft in, as to see what selection there yields the best group of players, so basically the best team. And with that being said, let's kind of deep dive this exercise and see where these true advantages lie in the first round. And for me, it starts with this range of pick number 1 through pick number 5, the top 5 picks, and I call them my power 5 because this power, whatever it is, exists every single year because it's the group of players that are just a notch above everybody else. And this year, it's Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley, David Johnson, Ezekiel Elliott, and Antonio Brown, the lone wide receiver. And, you know, what sets this range apart? Well, let's break it down. There's a couple of things. All these guys are proven players. So what do I mean by that? Well, we have the stats to back up that more than likely the data that we have, it's going to continue to trend upwards or at a range where what we've come to expect is very high performance. Whereas after that group of guys, maybe we start to see some sophomore players that we might start worrying about the sophomore slump, or some rookie players, maybe a Saquon Barkley that doesn't have any NFL game film and that isn't a sure thing. Or frankly, any other remaining wide receiver that just isn't quite Antonio Brown. So that's what I mean by proven players. On top of that, number 2 is the usage that you get out of these guys. And something I will mention, notice that there are 4 running backs here and 1 wide receiver. You know, there's a reason for that. I could have very easily said the top 4 picks, but just because Antonio Brown is such a difference maker and he's been such, a point of consistency these last couple of years, and Big Ben's favorite target by far, he is on this list. He gets plenty of receptions, even more valuable in PPR leagues. But the reason there's 4 running backs is, this is a trend we've seen. Running backs become more and more valuable. They can just do more than a wide receiver. They can both rush and catch the ball too. But mostly what these 4 running backs have in common is that they all have the potential to get close to over 1,000 yards rushing, close to 1,000 yards receiving, and double-digit touchdowns, because let's be honest, receivers don't get as many red zone opportunities as, a running back on the 1-yard line. And that's just the facts, because if you hand it off to your running back at the 1-yard line, there's a higher chance that they just, jump over that pile and get in with a touchdown than throwing something to your wide receiver, risking an interception, all of that. And basically, if you can get something like that, it pretty much raises the chance of success on hitting on your first pick in that first round. And we all know that's so important. If you can make sure and land a true difference maker in that first round, that automatically sets you apart. And with these top 5 guys, the nice thing is, if you grab any of them, no matter what your preference is, running back or wide receiver, that no matter what player you get, they almost count like a player and a half compared to everyone else, just because they are that number 1 guy on their team, because their team has a very explosive offense, because everything runs through that one player. And, if you're worried, for example, with the first pick overall. You have to wait such a long time until you get to pick again. Well, the nice thing with the first pick overall is it allows you to not mess around and get the one guy that you have rated as the number one player on your draft board. And you don't have to risk them not being available at number 2 or number 3 if you are picking there. And for you, if you're a person that doesn't see that big of a difference between, your number 1 and your number 2 or number 3 rated player, that's why I have this range of 1 through 5. Because sometimes, that difference between those top 5 guys isn't that much. And being able to land any one out of those 5 is going to lead you to be very happy and successful. And what's even better this year specifically, after you make a selection, let's say in the top 5, that second round this year is still so loaded. If you wanted to still get a difference maker at the wide receiver position, that's very doable if you went ahead and picked number 5. You don't have to wait as long. Compared to picking number 1, you can still get a true wide receiver difference maker, maybe a Mike Evans, maybe an AJ Green after they had some down years. Or you could double down on running backs. They won't necessarily be tier 1 running backs, but they will still be very good running backs. Maybe a Christian McCaffrey, maybe a Devontae Freeman, for example. Both guys that can be difference makers that are very serviceable, above average running backs. Again, if that is the route that you want to go. But now let's move into another group of players, the range 9 through 11, let's say. So more towards the back end of that draft. Now, the reason that I really like this range as well this year is because more than likely after the 5th pick overall, you're going to see maybe a receiver to get picked. You'll see, 1 or 2 running backs also get picked. And then you have your choice of players. You're more than likely going to still have a choice between maybe an Alvin Kamara / Saquon Barkley. That would be the top end of running back talent. You're still going to have, if things can fall your way, probably an Odell Beckham, maybe even a DeAndre Hopkins, depending on how your league drafts. That's also another point that, you should make sure that you're aware of. If you want to end up with a certain team, make sure you know how your league drafts, because that increases the chances that you can do so successfully. But with that being said, let's not get distracted. The reason that 9 through 11 spot is so nice, even though you've waited a little bit longer and you won't get one of these quote-unquote Power 5 guys, you can still get 2 very excellent above average players. Whether it be 2 running back 1s or 2 wide receiver number 1s. Obviously, they probably won't be in tier 1A if they're a running back, but they sure as hell could be in tier 1B. And by this group of guys, I mean your Leonard Fournettes, your Melvin Gordons, your Dalvin Cooks, and I said it before, your Saquon Barkley. And the beauty of it is, again, depending on your league, you can double down on one of these guys. There's a scenario, and it's happened very often, where right around, for me, the sweet spot has been like the 10th pick overall. If I make that selection, I can go ahead and land both a Leonard Fournette and a Melvin Gordon. And to me, that's a very formidable punch. On top of that, if you wanted to test the 0 running back or the 0 wide receiver strategy here, I think this is an excellent area to do so, especially the 0 running back strategy, because you can get 2 wide receivers that are basically, other than Antonio Brown, the best wide receivers, especially if a run on those running backs begins. Because it's not far-fetched to think that you can end up both with a Julio Jones and a AJ Green, or a Julio Jones and DeAndre Hopkins, based on how things fall. Just plug in any of those top wide receivers there that aren't Antonio Brown. And then, obviously, you have to wait a little bit longer until it comes back to you then, so in the 3rd round. But at this point, you have a group of players with your 1st and 2nd pick that are so, close together in talent and so high up in the talent chain that you can allow yourself to wait a little bit longer. And again, this year specifically, the third round, very similar to the second round, is still chock full of talent. You know, if you went 2 running backs, it's not out of the realm of possibility that you can still add a wide receiver number 1 like Doug Baldwin, who's seen his value drop a little bit. Especially in PPR leagues, Doug Baldwin, I think, is still a wide receiver number 1 after Seattle lost some weapons. So that's the reason I like the range of 9 through 11. It allows you to go immediately 2 very good players with close talent that don't have that big talent gap on your roster at one time. And now, before I conclude this video, I want to share that one asterisk of a selection in the first round where, you know, there's big advantages, but at the same time, it could be somewhat of a downfall as well. And for me, that's the pick right after the Power 5. So for me, that would be the 6th pick overall. And maybe for you, you don't have a Power 5. Maybe for you, it's a Power 4, maybe a Power 3. Heck, I don't know. But, you know, every person that drafts has their group of players that are just a notch above the others. And right after that is what could be the sweet spot, or it could be a spot ripe for disaster. Because we all know that in how many ever leagues we do, there's going to be one person, maybe multiple people, that reach on a player. And obviously this isn't something that you want to 100% bank on, because it takes choice out of your hands. But if someone goes ahead and overvalues someone like an Alvin Kamara or a Saquon Barkley, and you have the 6th pick overall, well, guess what? If it's me, I just landed one of my top 5 players and at the 6th position. So for me, that's an automatic win of the first round. I automatically just there got the best selection possible compared to everyone else in that first round. And the beauty of it all is you have to wait that much shorter of a time period when it snakes back to you in the second round. And maybe it's only a pick difference, but trust me, even one pick difference can make the can be the difference of getting the player that you were targeting and hoping falls to you, and then having to completely change your draft strategy, and that throwing off the remaining balance of your team. So with that being said, let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree with the general analysis of the breakdown of the best places to pick in the first round? To recap, for me, it's the top 5 picks. It's also the back end of the first round, 9 through 11. And then for a little caveat, the 6th pick as well. Let me know what you guys think. Let me hear it in the comments section. Let me know some kind of teams that you're really happy with, that you've been able to put together in those ranges. And as always, if you liked, make sure to subscribe, make sure to hit the like button, and I'll see you guys in future videos.